It is election year in Israel, and before poll dates have been finalized, Netanyahu's re-election bid has been announced already. The Likud party issued a statement saying that Benjamin Netanyahu will run in the upcoming elections and, God willing, win another term. Elections in Israel have to be held before October this year. The announcement, remember, comes after an American journalist quoted Donald Trump, in which the U.S. president raised a question if the Israeli prime minister would want to continue his political career. The question comes weeks and months after Trump had earlier asked Israel's president to pardon Netanyahu in his ongoing trials. Remember, Benjamin Netanyahu's term has been mired in one controversy after another after he returned to power in 2022. The issues have ranged from domestic policies to war-related decisions and ongoing corruption cases. In the first half of 2023, thousands of Israelis took part in nationwide protests over the Netanyahu government's decision to reform the country's judiciary. The overhaul essentially cut down powers of the court to overturn or block the contentious government policies. Following Hamas's attack in October of 2023 and Israel's bombing of Gaza, the country initially rallied behind the prime minister to bring the hostages back home. But as months turned into years and blanket bombing of Gaza drew international condemnation, protests grew back at home as Israelis demanded the rescue of hostages from Hamas's captivity. By 2025, more war fronts opened up. With the 12-day war with Iran, sporadic missile attacks by Yemen's Houthis, and a drawn-out conflict with Lebanon's Hezbollah drew mixed reactions from the Israelis. Some were not satisfied and wanted more aggressive retaliation by the Israeli forces and Netanyahu. Others wanted peace and an end to the instability. This year, Israel's war with Iran in joint force with the U.S. has further divided the Israeli society on the goals achieved and the domestic uncertainty that it has generated. Now, in the backdrop of all of this, Netanyahu's ongoing corruption cases and the trial hearings have hurt his goodwill. The latest poll by Jerusalem-based think tank observes that 61% Israelis who were polled do not want Netanyahu to run for another election. Bibi's current coalition is already weak, and it raises a big question on how the domestic and conflict-related crisis will play out for the Prime Minister in the months ahead. All right, let me welcome my guests on the show. Alex Tremin is joining us. He's CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of Jewish News Syndicate, joining us live on the broadcast from Jerusalem. Alex, good evening. Welcome to WION. Can I start by asking you how Israelis back home are taking this statement by Donald Trump? Is it being seen as a pressure tactic by the U.S. president amid the kind of escalation that the war has seen? Or is it being seen as a genuine reflection of the sentiment that prevails within Israel today?
Well, it's very clear from the statement that was issued by the Likud, which is Israel's largest party, that the prime minister intends to run in the upcoming election. He has no plans to step down at this time, but it is a signal perhaps that the president of the United States might be losing patience with the prime minister. At the same time, in Israel, we know that the president of the United States makes comments on the one hand, calling for the president to completely pardon Netanyahu and saying how great a prime minister he is. And then on the other hand, he can say something the complete opposite the next day. We've been on the Donald Trump roller coaster with regard to Iran and negotiations now for several weeks. So I'm not sure that anybody's going to read too deeply into one comment that the president makes. If he continues to make comments like that, then I think it could potentially have a bigger effect.
So, Alex, then help me understand this. Keeping aside whatever Donald Trump has been saying, what's the general sentiment? Because as we know, the Israeli society seems divided since this war has been started. And there are several voices that are now speaking against the prime minister. What is the general sentiment? What is the public feeling at the moment, months ahead of the elections that are supposed to take place?
Well, the same people that are criticizing the prime minister and calling for him to step down now are the same ones that were calling for him to step down even before this war began. You had 5 consecutive election cycles, all of which were basically a referendum over whether Netanyahu was fit to continue serving as the prime minister of Israel. And while the prime minister is by far and away the most unpopular politician in Israel, he's also at the same time the most popular politician in Israel, and the one that polls show is the most suited to actually be the prime minister and the most likely to form a coalition. So, you have the same voices that have been trying to get Netanyahu out of office for many years, still trying to do that. And most of those voices are also concentrated in the majority of the Israeli media.
Mm-hmm. So, do you not think, Alex, that, what a lot of people are saying, that the kind of escalation that we've seen from the Israeli forces as far as Lebanon is concerned is a strategy by Prime Minister Netanyahu to divert from the kind of corruption trials that he's facing back home? Because many do believe that this is his strategy to elongate this war as much as possible.
I think that that's a view that is being spread outside of the country, within the country. Most of the country supports Israel's continued fight against Hezbollah. They see Hezbollah on Israel's border as an existential threat, one that needs to be dealt with. In fact, there are many people in Israel saying that Netanyahu is being too cautious with regard to the fight against Hezbollah. And it's believed that even if somebody else would replace Netanyahu, whether that would be a Gadi Eisenkot or a Naftali Bennett, that they would continue Netanyahu's policies with regard to the war. Really, at home, it's just a question of the accountability over what happened on October 7th being seen as a major security failure that may point back up to Netanyahu, or just the fact that Netanyahu has been in office now for nearly 20 years, and that in a democracy, it's best to rotate your leaders a little bit more frequently.
All right, I'll leave it there. Let's wait and watch what happens and what the future holds for the political career, as Donald Trump said, for Benjamin Netanyahu. Thanks very much, Alex Trayman, for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.
Thanks for having me.